MyFertilityCharts.com gives you 3 different confidence indicators, namely certainty, completeness, and quality. These indicators are shown beneath your fertility chart using a 5-star system, with 5 stars being the highest and the preferred outcome. First, let's start by talking about certainty. Certainty tells you how certain you can feel about the overall ovulation date. To help understand this, let's look at a weather analogy. You may be interested in asking yourself, when is the next time it's going to rain? To help answer that question, we may consider 4 different 5-day forecasts from meteorologists, namely Mary, Tom, John, and Sue. In this case, the meteorologists all agree on different dates on when it's going to rain next. But generally, Tuesday and Wednesday seems to be the overall answer. In fact, Wednesday would be the best prediction, since 3 out of the 4 meteorologists all agree that this would occur on Wednesday, and Mary thinks it's going to be Tuesday, which is relatively close to that. In this case, we would say that the certainty is high, since multiple sources of information are all agreeing on a similar estimate of Wednesday. If we look at these 5-day forecasts, though, each of the meteorologists is estimating a different date of when it's going to rain next. If we had to pick a single estimate, single day when it's going to rain next, we might generally try to pick something in the middle, maybe Tuesday or Wednesday, but we can't put a lot of emphasis on that estimate because the certainty is relatively low since multiple sources are all producing different estimates. So it's hard to come up with a single date estimate and put a lot of confidence in it. In this case, we would say that the certainty is low because multiple sources are disagreeing. To tie this analogy back to ovulation charting, let's take a look at the table of ovulation estimates shown on myfertilitycharts.com. On the left in this table, you'll notice that there's different symptoms and different analysis techniques that are used to produce estimates. This is analogous to the different meteorologists in the weather example. These are different sources of ovulation date estimates. The ovulation dates, shown on the right, are similar to the weather forecasts that we've been looking at. So let's go ahead and tie this back to some fertility charts to better understand certainty. Certainty will tell us how closely the dates and the estimates are and how much confidence we can put into them. So in this case here, we're going to see it's very similar to that first example with the weather, where we've got cycle day 13 and cycle day 14 as the generally agreed region of ovulation. In fact, most of the sources are all saying that February 20th, or cycle day 14, is the most likely date for ovulation. Only one disagrees, and it says that it's very close to that on February 19th, or cycle day 13. In this case, we would say that the certainty is very high. In this next example, it's very different though. Although the basal body temperatures all generally agree that ovulation is somewhere in the August 26th to 27th range, some of the other types of indicators that are recorded are suggesting dates that are much farther out. In fact, ovulation can range anywhere from cycle day 13 all the way up to cycle day 20. Although we can produce an overall ovulation estimate based on all of this information, because of the large region of ovulation dates going all the way from cycle day 13 up to 20, we would have to say that the certainty of this estimate would be low. In fact, here it's shown as cycle day 17 is the overall estimated ovulation date considering all the symptoms, but the certainty of that specific date is low because we have many different reporting factors that are actually suggesting different dates. Next, let's talk about completeness. Completeness, as the name would suggest, indicates how complete the cycle is. When we were talking about weather forecast, it may be that we only have one meteorologist that's reporting a 5-day forecast so far. In this case, we can look at this and say the next time it's going to rain is going to be on Wednesday, but it's hard to know if that's accurate or not because we haven't seen what the other meteorologists have to say. In this case, we would say that the completeness is low. We may be better off waiting for additional information to come in, but in the meantime, the estimate of Wednesday seems reasonable. In this example, though, we have all 4 meteorologists reporting their forecast. Now we can base this information and consider multiple sources in coming up with our estimate. We may still decide that Wednesday is the next most likely day for rain, but now we can also say that the completeness is high because multiple sources are all reporting. To apply this to an ovulation chart, let's look at this one. In this case, the ovulation chart is very early, and it's early in the cycle, so not much information has been recorded yet. As a result, the different analysis techniques have not been able to come up with an ovulation date yet. Therefore, we would say that the completeness is low. In this example, though, it's much farther into the cycle, and since data is provided, all of the ovulation techniques have produced different ovulation dates. The exception being saliva ferning, which was not being tracked anyways. So since all tracked symptoms have produced ovulation estimates, we would say that the completeness in this case would be high. The third and final confidence indicator is quality. Quality tells us what type of information is feeding into the estimates that we're using. So let's go back to the weather forecast analogy. Before we were just talking generally about different meteorologists. It may be that these forecasts are coming from different sources. So as an example, maybe the first two are coming from the Farmer's Almanac and a simple barometric pressure estimate, which we may consider less estimate than other techniques, such as different computer models that may be used. So if we only have 2 out of the 4 forecasts which are giving us information, and these 2 are the lesser in terms of accuracy, then we would consider that the overall quality of this estimate would be low. If, on the other hand, we have 2 of the forecasts that are available to us, but these are the more accurate of the 2, then we would consider the quality to be high. Taking a look at ovulation charts, quality works quite similarly. In this chart, the only symptom that's being tracked, you'll notice here, is saliva ferning. Other symptoms such as cervical mucus, ovulation testing, and basal body temperatures are not being tracked in this cycle. Although we may be able to come up with an ovulation date estimate, because the symptom that we're basing that estimate on is less accurate, we would consider the quality of this estimate to be low. Saliva ferning is not necessarily as good of an indicator of ovulation. In contrast, let's consider this cycle. Even though ovulation dates haven't been determined yet because it's too early, we know that we're tracking basal body temperatures, we're also tracking ovulation tests, and we're also tracking cervical mucus. These are all very good indicators of ovulation, and as a result, since we have good information coming from quality sources, we would consider the quality to be high. For more information on this, and to try this out yourself for free by setting up an account, you can visit myfertilitycharts.com.